Good evening, everyone, on a Monday night, talking Miami football on the week of a bye week. So we join you at 5-1 with the Canes downing Virginia 19-14. A team that won the division last year, the Cavaliers, but of course Miami beat them at home in 2019 as well in a 17-9 game. This one, even with the Canes only scoring 2 more points, was definitely a more explosive offensive effort for Miami football. The defense was, again, for the most part, dominant. I have just watched the first half. So on Saturday night for me, I was checking out a number of games as I typically do, trying to cover all of college football, trying to check in on the biggest games of the night, Michigan, Minnesota being number one on the list, but trying to check out everyone. Had this one on DVR. I had it on a second screen at the time, but didn't really watch it to my satisfaction. So I just checked out the first half and the first couple drives of the third quarter. Would love to get your take, because this is something that we want to make sure that we get to each and every week. Covering Miami football is a post-game show of some sort, whether we do it right after the game or we do it in regards to recapping the game, providing the analysis, getting your take, your analysis of the game. And then in this particular week, we've got no game, but we've got a bye week and we've got NC State. And of course, bye weeks have not been particularly kind to Manny Diaz. All right, so I'm going to check out everybody and your comments, your questions, your debate topics, and the like in the live chat. And of course, the phone lines are open at 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. Got the super chat on, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App to contribute to the channel in those ways. All right, good to see everybody on the line. I've taken notes again on most of the game here, but want to hear from you as well. Emmanuel Pierre, good to see you. Good to see you out there. Brett as well. What's up? Got the live squad hashtag working, courtesy Beard God Kel. Beard, thank you so much for getting the hashtag up and running. First and foremost, right there. So you got, again, as the wholesome one likes to tell us consistently, you've got the live squad, you got the rewatch squad, you got the notification squad. That means you've subscribed here to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Hopefully you're all subscribed right here, and you check out all the videos and so forth and so on. I would love to be able to get all of you a programming schedule. I'm going to be able to do that on the main channel, but just because of scheduling conflicts and trying to get everyone together, meaning the wholesome one and Cam, those two guys in particular, but anybody else that we have here on a regular basis, would like to get Paul Scoop on the U, get him back here on a regular basis as well. Alonzo 1219, of course, to talk Hurricane football. Therefore, we can't get you a set schedule because there's just too many schedules running here and there, back and forth, to try to get everyone together or each one of them together with me at a particular time each and every week. We're working on Cam, and we should get him nailed down on a Thursday night, I believe. I believe we're going to have Miami Live coming up on a Thursday night. So we should be all set with that. So again, Brett, good to see you in the live squad as well. Let's make it through here. We've missed, unfortunately, sometimes, so you see a different live chat stream than I do. You see the one directly from YouTube. I see one that goes through my application StreamYard, which allows me to bring the comments to the screen. Therefore, there's sometimes an issue where it skips comments, and it just did that. So I got the first few comments to the screen. Unfortunately, it skipped a few, and then they're lost. Devin Ray's on the line. First question, when the hell is our DBs going to wake the hell up? Third and long should not be so easy to get for opposing offenses. How do you leave people so wide-ass open in the fourth quarter? I've yet to get to that portion in the game, but if that's what happened, and I got to believe, Devin, that is the case, yeah, a fourth and long or a third and long play, obviously teams are only going for fourth and long when they have to, when they're down a certain amount of points in the fourth quarter and they've got to score and so forth and so on. But in regards to, thought that was a call coming in for the show. That was a call coming in for me, and they'll have to wait. So back to your point, Devin, when you look at the percentages of third and long conversions, it's extremely low across the NFL and college football. It's extremely low. Once you get a team to 3rd and 7 and plus, you should be in great shape as a defense because they're more predictable. And obviously you can just cover in the secondary much differently. And obviously it takes time to get downfield as receivers. And there's just so many different variables that work in the defense's favor. It's almost like an 0-2 count in baseball favoring the pitcher. He's got the hitter at his mercy. He can do a number of things. He's got to have him guess. He's got to have him swing at balls off the plate. It's very similar to that in regards to percentages. Very different sports, but in terms of percentages. And so, Devin, I guess we'll get to that part of the game. I'm at the end of the third quarter, and it's 13-7. One of the other reasons I wanted to watch this game, Justin, again, in addition to running a Miami channel, so I feel obligated to watch all the games. In addition to that, I just like watching college football, so I want to watch everybody. In addition to that, I was looking at De'Ara King's numbers throughout the night and thinking, why aren't they scoring more? I'm not seeing turnovers. I'm seeing very productive pass offense numbers. So why aren't they scoring? Why do they have 12 points or 13 points midway through the fourth quarter? What's going on here? So, Devin, that is a great question about play in the fourth quarter by the DBs giving up the 3rd and long. Now, if they didn't get the pass rush home, it's tough to cover for a long period of time. We all know that. These guys can only be covered for a few seconds, even if you've got the athletic advantage that a Miami has over a Virginia. I'll let you know what caught my eye in the first half. And to start the third quarter, this is what I've got. That first play of the game, De'Ara King made a decent throw down the right sideline, but Will Mallory made a hell of a catch over the defender's shoulder to pluck that ball away and pick up about 35 yards on the very first play of the game. So Will Mallory, I know that Brevin Jordan is, as Cam would say, the best tight end in America. I'm not going to verify that. He's certainly one of the best 3 or 4, and he very well may be the number 1 guy in the country. But Will Mallory is certainly a tight end that would start on 95% of the teams in America. He's tremendous. And he's taking advantage of the opportunity, certainly. And even when Jordan's on the field, he has become a threat, an impact. He has become a more aggressive player. He was physically just as imposing, just as fast and big and strong and all those things last year, but he was a more timid player. He just seems like a much more confident player. And he's worked on his pass catching abilities. That's for sure. You don't get recruited and signed at a school like Miami if you can't catch the football, but being able to catch it and being able to aggressively pull it away from defenders and aggressively come get the ball and learn some of those techniques, he's taken big strides in that area. Last year, he was more of a specimen. He's going to catch the ball when he's open, but now he's catching the ball in traffic. And so that was a great play. And of course, Miami scored in 28 seconds. Virginia got caught in a bad defensive concept when Miami had trips to the right on the second play of the game. And Mike Harley was on the inside, and he actually got hooked up with the outside linebacker, Noah Taylor, who's a really good player for Virginia, but should not be covering maybe Miami's fastest player, Mike Harley, who just went right by him. And the ball was right on the money, and any decent quarterback in college football is going to make that throw. He's wide open. And there you go. 28 seconds into the game, he got 7 points. And so that's why I was wondering, 13 points halfway through the fourth quarter. What's going on here? So 2 plays, 75 yards right out of the gate. Miami was facing a very limited offense. We all know that. No premier running back. Quarterback situation's a mess for Virginia. Bronco Mendenhall was doing everything possible to scheme up that team during the week. Even the announcers during the game were making comments about, we didn't see this on film. We've never seen this for Virginia offense. The Cavaliers, this is, you you got to feel good about your team if you're a Miami fan in regards to you got their best shot. And I know you're used to getting the other team's best shot because you're Miami, but you in particular got this team's best shot because Bronco Mendenhall figured we don't have a strength here. Our strength is we've got a really good tight end, one of the best in the ACC, and we've got some pieces on the outside that we can use, but we don't have a premier running back. We don't have a stable of running backs even. They have to kind of make it up in regards to running back play. And then we've got these three quarterbacks that all do different things. And Brendan Armstrong's by far the best passer, but he's not a great passer. 55% coming in, more interceptions than TDs. But they utilize the other two guys, Keaton Thompson, a former Mississippi State signee who actually took over for Nick Fitzgerald when he got hurt a couple of years ago and played the bowl game and started a few games with the Bulldogs. And Armstead as well, playing at quarterback. So they tried to trick Miami all over the place with just various concepts of the Wildcat. So we saw the typical Amari Carter hit right out of the gate, the first drive of the game, boom, targeting. And that was an obvious call. Was not a bad call. For as much as I went on a rant the other night, if you heard me, must have been last night. It seems like college football was like 4 days ago, and it was just last night or the night before, I should say. So I went on a rant about targeting and the two issues I have with targeting. I won't do that. I'll spare you. But Amari Carter, that was a legit targeting. Helmet to helmet, bam, lowered, like really lowered the head, like a bull. Amari Carter, to play on the next level, I doubt if NFL scouts are really well. They track everything. Let's be serious about this. There's so much money on the line. They track everything that a player's involved in and what they do on the field versus what they do off the field. But I would think targeting would be low because most players would have like one in their career, two, maybe three over the course of 2 or 3 years. But Amari Carter, this is probably going to be in the scouting report. It is in the scouting report on the NFL level. This guy needs to learn how to not target. There was a tremendous pass breakup from Al Blades. I believe it was Al Blades on the Virginia tight end, who's a really good player, Poljan. They threw a lateral screen out to the quarterback Armstrong, who threw it downfield. The tight end Poljan was wide open and hauling it in around the 5-yard line, and the pass was broken up. Great beeline to the football by I think it was DJ Ivy or Al Blades, one of the two. Should have taken note of that. Bubba Bolden had a nice pass breakup in the end zone when they tried to throw the little trick jump pass where they ducked into the line and popped it over. Bubba Bolden was not fooled. He was the only guy who was not fooled on that play. So nice job by him. Miami gets pushed back on the next drive on the holding on number 86. And then De'Ara King bailed them out of it with a 19-yard run. And just about any quarterback in the country would have broke contain because the lane to his left was wide open. But most quarterbacks would have gotten 12 or 13 yards max. De'Ara King got 19. He was there like in a hurry. And I think in addition to his speed and his vision in finding the running lane, he also can see downfield and know which angle he should take to get him where he needs to go. I think that's another skill and another ability he has. 3rd and 4th at Virginia 35, and this is where the Miami drive bogged down. DJ Scaife just got mauled and run over for basically a sack. King threw it away. I think he was called for intentional grounding, so that's a sack basically. Worse than a sack. DJ Scaife just blown away up the middle. Harley had a 3rd down conversion play that was really impressive on the next drive. De'Ara King on the throw. I'm trying to think what that looked like. I can't at this point. your punching bag, Mark Pope, and I agree with you. I'm not blaming you Miami fans. And if we've got Virginia fans and other ACC and college football fans, come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. But anyway, so I assume we've got mostly Miami fans. This is the Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football Miami channel. But Mark Pope did make a tremendous catch on the right sideline on that bomb in the second quarter where he was running and the ball was thrown over his shoulder. And it looked like he didn't track it well because he was getting short arm. And then all of a sudden he laid out and he was able to get the left foot in. Great catch by Mark Pope. What ended the Miami series again? The scoring threat? Pressure on third down. They couldn't run the ball. Virginia's run defense was really good in this game against the running backs. And we know Miami's got 3 tremendous running backs. I really love the 2 freshmen. Chaney and Knighton are excellent. I think they're both going to be better than Cam Harris, but he's a good back too. But they had pressure on third down again. So Virginia pressure, third and long. There you go. Blocked field goal. Good play by the Virginia special teams unit to get Borgalis to miss. He didn't really miss. They blocked the field goal. 2.5 minutes left in the first half. They throw the screen. They had trips left. They throw the screen on the inside to Mike Harley. Will Mallory made a great block. He wiped out 2 guys. But Mike Harley, my goodness, he made a tremendous catch and run on that. Tremendous. He's outplaying the other wide receivers at this point. Mallory, there was a misconnection that led to the field goal. So it was 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8, something in that range. And they threw the fade to Mallory. He could have made a better play on the ball. The ball wasn't thrown that well. The coverage was tight. De'Eric was just basically trusting his wide receiver, trusting his receiver, Mallory, on that one. All right. First half analysis right there. I'll get to the rest of it. But we will continue with your questions because I don't want to get too far behind in the chat. John Sarian, next question. Is Lashley the answer if the offense can't execute his plan consistently? I once heard a top coach make a very astute observation, and this is one of the reasons why he's an elite coach and one of the reasons why he's got the greatest winning percentage of all time. But I heard him talking to a high school coaching clinic, and he basically was letting them know. Now, I think there are exceptions to this. You have athletes who just don't want to learn, want to do it themselves, and regardless of how effective you are, they're just zoned out, they're selfish, they're whatever. So there are those individuals. But basically, if people aren't learning, it's the teacher's fault, meaning the coach's fault. A great teacher, even a good teacher, is effective because they figure out, and we had a course at the corporation where I just resigned from. We had a really good course. I can't teach the teacher. Teach the teacher. Basically, and in the process of teaching the teacher, you let them know you may be a really good teacher, meaning you know your topic. That's the number one criteria of being a really good teacher is you know your subject. Number 2 is that you're a clear communicator. You know how to communicate. But I've had to learn this through the years. My communication style, it might be clear. I might be a decent speaker. I might have a decent vocabulary, all those things. But that doesn't necessarily resonate with every person. People hear differently. People listen differently. When you're talking about math, you're talking about, and we are in football to a certain extent, you're talking about geometry to a certain extent. If you really want to get into it, then you got to figure out how they best learn. And not all 11 players on the offense, and there's really about 20 or 25 that actually play different roles on the offense. By the time you rotate about 5 offensive linemen, become 7 or 8 with injuries and so forth, and a few tight ends, 6, 7 wide receivers that play, and on and on and on. You're talking about like 25 players. You got to get through to all of them. You've got to get through to all of them some way. So, and then in this day and age, especially with as much film work these guys do and as much classroom type, and with these insider type documentary series that we see now, like the oh my goodness, what's the NFL Network series called with the NFL teams where they go through training camp? Somebody will come up with it for me. Hard Knocks. There's all those kind of shows. The Big Ten Network does them. Other networks do them. The SEC Network, where they follow the team around, and you really get a good feel for how much they're in a classroom setting, talking football, showing film, showing diagrams, just talking concepts. And then they do all of that. They don't show us typically inside the individual units doing all that as well. So you've got to teach these. And let's face it, in this day and age, and I just heard something on public radio about this today, and it's not a big mystery or not necessarily a big surprise to anyone, that people don't learn as well as they used to. Especially the younger generation does not learn as quickly as they used to. Well, they're really smart, they're sharp, but they're not as patient because they're used to having this thing in their hand all the time and having like 18 stimuli at the same time. So they're not used to concentrating. People are having difficult time concentrating on one person, one topic, one discussion. So you need to figure out a way. And I was watching this coaching clinic a few years ago, and they were talking about exactly that. These players are not used to that one-on-one interaction, and that's all they have to deal with in listening. They're used to having something grab their attention. So you better grab their attention, coach. And talking to the positional unit coaches, you got to figure out how to grab their attention. And if they're not learning, they're probably not excited about it. They're probably not into it. And you've got to figure out a way to make them understand it to where it's interesting to them. So I probably didn't answer your question because I went off on a tangent. But is Lashley the answer if the offense can't execute his plan consistently? You know what I would like to do, because this came up with Kendall Briles. I'm sure you all love Kendall Briles, but he's no longer at Florida State, so you probably like him a little bit more than you used to. But what I did notice with Kendall Briles in evaluating the hire at the time at Florida State was that I looked at each of his stops in the group of five and saw, okay, what was that offense ranked before he got there? And typically you hire an offensive coordinator, and I thank you so much for the super chats. I'll get to those in just a second. You hire a head coach, an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, because the previous guy wasn't doing the job unless he moved on to a better job. So Kendall Briles, before Florida State, now who knows what happened at Florida State? A number of things are going wrong there. But in particular, Briles, at his previous stops, he had he took over an issue-ridden offense, 105th in the nation, typically, something like that. And he raised it 75, 80 spots in the rankings while he was there. And a lot of things could contribute to that, but it was pretty telltale that when he left, they declined. So he took a bad offense. He raised his level for the 3 years he was there. Then when he left, it declined. Same thing happened over and over and over and over 3 times. So that's saying something. I don't know about Red Lashley. I haven't done the same study on him to see if that's been the pattern. The other word I'll pick out, John, in your phrase there, your question, is consistency. This Miami offense is better than it's been because of De'Ara King, more so, I think, than Red Lashley, but the offense is better, but it still relies on big plays. It scores all its points, most of its points on big plays. They may go on a drive that ends in a field goal where they churned out about 55 yards on 10 plays, those kind of drives. And you need big plays. You can't rely on moving the sticks consistently because obviously a negative play almost always kills a drive, almost always. So you need to, the explosive factor is huge, but that's how this team has scored for years because they have athletes. but the consistency has not been there. So here we go, 19-7, 2-point conversion. Nobody got open, and De'Ara King got sacked. All right. Ronan Jones, good to see you, Ronan. Can't blame Lashley for the offensive line being consistently terrible. His red zone play calling was poor, but the offensive line was the biggest issue again on Saturday night. I was going to make the same comment about the red zone play calling. And in this particular, the one thing that we don't see watching the games is how the wide receivers are separating downfield. That's probably our biggest liability in watching the games on TV, is trying to get a look at the wide receivers to see if they're separating downfield. Emmanuel, good to see you. Brett, again, the live squad. I guess I did get back to the beginning of the chat here. Emmanuel, what's going on, sir? Coming back with the best in college football. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'll let all of you know that we're building a vision here. This is what we're doing. So we appreciate you jumping on board and contributing any way that you can. It's my job to deliver as best content, the best content, and the best comments, I guess, would go into the content that I possibly can, whether that's from me or all the people that I bring in. So just appreciate what we do. Phil, good to see you. Go Noles. So I love this when we have other fan bases, even rival fan bases in the chat. Adon Bay, good to see you. Elias, God bless you and everyone as well. Again, we've got the live squad, and keep in mind, if you're in the live squad, and I will get to these super chats, keep in mind, if you're in the live squad, that you probably missed a few minutes of the live version. Therefore, once the video posts, you need to be part of the rewatch squad as well. Ronan, first and foremost, got the win. 5-1. Keep in mind, this team, I believe, was 3-3 at this time last year. So 5-1. First and foremost, got the win. Huge improvements need to be made moving forward, though nowhere near good enough on Saturday night. Mr. HD, I will take 5-1 going into the bye week. It's really difficult to evaluate this team in one facet. They played Clemson. They played Clemson on the road. Clemson might be the best team in the country. I don't know that we could find too many people that watch college football that would say Clemson's any worse than the third best team in the country. That's about as low as anyone would go. They're one of the three best. All right. Now we've got Miami playing, besides Clemson, a bunch of teams that maybe the best team that they've played. Who is the second best team Miami's played? Virginia is about the same as Florida State, is about the same as Louisville, although Louisville just crushed Florida State. So maybe Louisville's starting to hit its stride after a really rough start. UAB's one of the, I don't want to say one of the best group of five. They're not on the Cincinnati-Memphis plane, but they're one of the best in Conference USA. So it would be great for Miami to have played a Notre Dame, and maybe we'll see this when they play North Carolina. It would be interesting to see them play somebody on their level. If we would have had non-conference games, well, Michigan State, Michigan State is not what they used to be. They just lost to Rutgers. So that would not have necessarily been the game, although it might have been a decent game. They would have played Temple. Temple's not as good as they typically are. They were supposed to play those two games. But to see Miami play a Tennessee, an LSU, a Texas A&M, again, and North Carolina is coming up later. That's going to be a fascinating game. Virginia Tech. Those are the two teams that I'm interested to see Miami play because they're more in their league. They've played Clemson, and then they've played Virginia, Louisville, Florida State. These teams are like the 50th best teams in the country. So it would just be nice to see for Miami a matchup like Michigan had on Saturday night and really pass the test against Minnesota. Now we'll see if Minnesota is any good, but they certainly were last year. You know, that kind of game. And I will touch up the set here just a second. Just a second. Sorry about that, since this is Miami Live. Kane's blog, good to see you. Emmanuel, first time being on the live squad. Usually can't catch you, but I rewatch every episode. Appreciate that, Emmanuel. Thank you so much. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So it's amazing to me how many people I finally get a chance to talk to. And then I find out they've been watching for months or years. It's crazy. So for Emmanuel, I don't remember, and you please excuse me because I can't remember everybody's name. Obviously, we got 21,000 subscribers on the other channel and about 4,000 something here. But I didn't recognize seeing Emmanuel. But it's awesome that you watched the re-airs and you got a chance to see us live. And I really wish I could give you a concrete live programming schedule here, but I just can't. Between myself, between the Wholesome One, between getting Cam on and other guests, we just have to connect when we can. But what I decided this afternoon was I got to watch this game. I saw probably 20 plays live Saturday night, but I want to watch it. And then this is going to be my goal. Maybe I will set a specific time on Monday if we don't do instant analysis on Saturday to get us all together to run through the game. Kyle Smith, Mark, you get a chance to watch the game. Yeah, so I did answer that, but you probably asked that question way before we got to it. Yes. I watched into the third quarter, and I got it playing right now. So I took notes on the first half into the third quarter. Brian Luciano, the bend, don't break defense is getting really frustrating to watch. Curious if it's directly related to our lack of depth with our corners and linebackers. I wouldn't think that would be part of that philosophy because depth obviously speaks to you can't get enough players on the field. You can't rotate defensive linemen or whatever group it is. You can't rotate and get, let's say if you play a 4-3 as they do, you can't get 7-8 into the rotation along the defensive line. It's only like 5 or 6, which can really wear on a team long term. But I would think that you would want to be more aggressive to get off the field. Because what happens when the more aggressive you are, the more a drive is either instantly successful or unsuccessful. Because if you're aggressive as a defense, either boom, sack, tackle for loss, throw away, 3 and out, bam, we got him off the field. Or we got burned, touchdown. Not to that, those are extremes, but there's less 15 plays, 75 yards, 12 plays, 82 yards. There's less of those kind of drives if you're playing aggressively. And you consistently, Brian, as you well know, have more talent than almost everybody you play. Everybody you've played this year, except Clemson, you have more talent. And you have comparable talent to Clemson. Not quite as much, but you can, with the right coaching and development, can beat Clemson. Their classes put together are top 5 to 10. Yours are top 15 to 20. It's not huge, the disparity. And this is where I ended up probably watching the game live for the rest of the way because my DVR stopped. All right. Sampson, good to see you. Our defense is playing soft. Manny needs to scratch the Blake Baker project and start calling the defense himself. And maybe that's what needs to happen. It would be fascinating. It would be fascinating to hear the interactions between any coaches in any situation, but in particular that situation when you've got a coach who is so good on one side of the ball and their defense is playing good. They just gave up 14 points to a team with a pulse that's scoring more than 14 points against everybody else. And let's see, take the Clemson game out for a second. They gave up 34 to Louisville, and I know they got gashed in regards to yardage, but I thought that in the third quarter when that game was on the line, They had gotten that 1-2 score lead, and when the game was really hanging in the balance, when Louisville could have gotten back into it, and Louisville did get put in a position where they had to keep answering score after score after score after score. So the offense did put that game out of reach. I didn't think that the defense played as badly as the metrics. They didn't play well against Louisville. They didn't play as well as other teams did against Louisville, like i.e. Pitt and Notre Dame. But you get to see on Saturday, the game wasn't on TV, but I checked out the highlights. I checked out a couple drives late in the second quarter on the app, and the halftime stats were crazy to see what Louisville did to Florida State. It was a butt whipping, just shredding that defense. And Florida State has dudes on defense. But anyway, that's their problem. So, Samson, that's a great point. And it's an interesting dynamic, again, when you've got a mastermind as a head coach. I'm going to go way back. I'm going to blow by most of your football past when I bring this up. My apologies, but it's the best example I've got off the top of my head. But when you've got Tom Landry on the sideline coaching the Dallas Cowboys, and the man invented the 4-3 defense and the flex defense, and he was a defensive mastermind who was the defensive coordinator when Vince Lombardi was the offensive coordinator with the New York Giants in the 50s, and they were winning and going to NFL championship games, and then he's a head coach. Yeah, when you're the best, and Manny Diaz isn't necessarily the best on defense, but he's a tremendous defensive mind. There has to be some tension, friction, something there, because you're always going to feel as though I could do that better. Conundrum, thank you so much for the encouragement and letting everyone know to hit the like button. I got to tell you that even when people watch videos to get us to, let's say, 3,000 or 4,000 views on a video, but I only see like 87 likes, that's a situation in which YouTube credits us for likes. For whatever reason, they like to see people like the video, and then they push that video. So in addition to watching the videos, please like the videos. It helps us out tremendously. And for me to do this all the time. So basically, I've resigned from my position, resigned from my job, left my job. I'm doing this all the time, full time, full throttle, and going to try to make this go. And I got to ramp it up fast. So we would appreciate the likes. And so much the super chats, especially. Red zone offense is atrocious. We got that taken care of for you. Pardon me, need some water. The voice is a bit shaky today. The Canes blog. Predictable. Vanilla play calling in the red zone. That's why we didn't score too many runs up the middle. Robert Reed says, I'd like to see a little more Robert Burns down inside the 10. He got, 4 or 5 carries the week before against Pitt and was pretty effective. David McKee, how long will D'Eriq King play for Miami? Well, I think there's some good news there, because unless I'm missing something, and I don't follow NFL draft boards, but I have to think that you're in the perfect situation with D'Eriq King. In that, he's not Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, who's going to leave early and be one of the top 5 picks in the NFL draft. But he's also very capable. So it's not a guy that you want to see go. Move him along. Malik Rozier, go. See ya. Thanks for getting your graduation. So you want to see him there, but he's not quite good enough to be that guy to go. So I would think D'Eriq King's coming back. I would think that he's coming back to play in 2021. Again, I might miss something, and if he's going to be a 5th-round pick in the NFL draft, that might be good enough for him. And he may be in a situation with his family. Who knows? There are all sorts of motivations, and there are all sorts of perceptions. And we've seen this more in the last 10 years than at any time since underclassmen have been eligible, that even guys that end up not getting drafted, even though they get that advantage of getting the NFL draft grade, where they can find out where they're projected to go. These players are still going and not getting drafted. A lot of them. Sampson, Lashley needs to go away from that inside zone run. Our offensive line can't block for it, and it's getting way too predictable at this point. Well, are we talking about where the quarterback has the option to hand it off or take it himself in terms of the inside zone run? Ronan, Corey Gaynor graded out at a 49 on Pro Football Focus Saturday night, 26 in pass pro, not the be-all, end-all, but that is completely unacceptable for a starting Power 5 offensive lineman. Yeah, Pro Football Focus, great site, does some great work in evaluating how effective players are. Kyle, no question. I saw enough of him last year to know he wasn't the answer, but I was ready to give him another shot. He has proven me right. Obviously, some of these are inside conversations, but I'm trying to pick apart what makes sense here. You guys aren't real high on McLeod and Gaynor. Yeah, I've seen enough. Kyle Smith adds Amari Carter, although we don't see a whole lot of Amari Carter. That's the thing. We don't see much of him. Did not catch Ronan. I did not catch Mike Harley's post-game interview. I thought he had a tremendous game, at least through 2.5 quarters. Ronan says, Carter's making bonehead plays, but his effort is there. I'll give him that at least. McLeod is still trying to get off the ball as we speak. Yeah, I think it's been stated by most of you, many of you, I should say, in our conversations covering Miami over the last several weeks, once we got into the season, that it became pretty evident that you guys were really down on 2 position units, meaning the veterans in those position units, and really wanting to see the young guys and seeing when they did get a chance, them step up and play well. And that's at wide receiver, linebacker. Will Sky, this spread offense isn't so spread, just an upgraded version of Enos. Tyron reminds everyone 5-1, but again, in this day and age, 19-14 against Virginia. That's a disappointing showing. Now, again, it's a win. Virginia's going to possibly beat some other teams, but they are 1-4. So Virginia lost to Clemson. They got blown out by Wake Forest. So they lost by more against Wake Forest. I think that game was like 40-23 or something like that. They lost to, I don't remember else. Virginia lost to, I could go through it. The other ACC teams, the other 4 ACC teams, Clemson, Miami, Wake Forest, and somebody else I'm not thinking of right this second. And they beat Duke. That was their win. Robert Reed, everyone is talking like we're 1-5. Am I missing something? In actuality, we are still young in reps with no spring. So let's look at it this way. The defense is just about as good as the defense has been since 2016, 2017. At the point that you guys raised, the level was raised at the program to play top 10 defense in the nation. And it's pretty much been that since then, top 10 to 15 defense. And statistically, probably better than that, but I would rate it a little slightly lower than that. 10 to 15 in the nation, which is very good defense. What you have right now that makes scoring so much easier and moving the ball and then scoring, De'Ara King, much better than N'Kosi Perry, Jaron Williams, and Malik Rozier, and even Brad Kaya, who is capable, though, at least. More than capable. But De'Ara King's the best quarterback you've had since, I've asked this question a few times. So you've got your best quarterback that you've had in quite some time. And obviously, it's the most important position on the field. Number 2, you've got 3 points standing on the sideline once you get inside the 50-yard line, if there's not a blocked kick. And to have a kicker think about where you were, and this may come in handy against Virginia Tech and North Carolina. Think about being in the red zone last year and thinking, we got to score a touchdown, because if we don't score a touchdown and the ball's sitting at the 23-yard line, are we going to make a 40-yard field goal? Maybe, maybe not. Well, now when the ball's sitting at the 35-yard line of the other team and you've only driven it 25, 30 yards, but you've gotten to the opposition's 35, well, we feel pretty good about a 52-yard field goal with Borregales. That's huge. That is huge. Kyle Smith says, you're on it, Ronan. Unfortunately, I believe this is the culture Manny has created. Ronan says, saw someone call Lashley fast Ricked. Don't think it's quite that bad, but still a good description of the last 2 weeks. Mr. HD says, this feels like 2017 vibes. Even though we were 10-0 to start, we had so many flaws and eventually got found out. Well, I think because Clemson was added to the schedule, not originally on the schedule, but added to the schedule, that what you're saying right there was found out. So it's already been found out. And so you didn't have to go through a 10-0 and then boom, you lost to a Pitt team that you should not have lost to, that you were better than. But when you played a C game and they played a B+ or an A game, they beat you. And then, of course, the ACC championship game happened. So you were found out, but the point is well taken. But this team has a kicker and a quarterback. If nothing else, you've got it over that team. Kicker, quarterback. Gervin Hall, if I'm remembering where I was at that point in the chat, Brian, is, it was Gervin Hall. 26. It was Gervin Hall who made the play when Virginia could have had a first down and goal at the 5. Now, I think they eventually did score. That was the first drive of the game. So it didn't change anything, but it could have. And Gervin Hall wasn't responsible, of course, for Virginia then scoring, but it could have been a big play. SEC dog, Dan Enos will supply the O over the I, would probably average 50 points a game with King at quarterback, but Miami got rid of him. Where's Dan Enos? Where did he go? Anyway, I'll look that up. Yes, Luke, he does. Carter, Amari. Targeting. It's right next to his name. Mark him down for next week. Mr. HD is giving us a roll call on the terrible offensive line play from numbers 53, 65, and 51. And I don't know the offensive line by number. I know all the names, but all right. Love the optimism, Ronan, but I've seen this all before too many times. Let's hope my gut feeling is wrong. It depends when there's an argument or a disagreement about how enthusiastic you all can be, Miami fans, about your team. I think it depends on your expectation. My expectation of this team was that it was one of the 20 best teams in the country, and I picked them to go 8-3. They're certainly on course to do that. Let's say they lose to North Carolina. Right now, they're actually on a better pace than 8-3, because I basically thought they lose to Clemson, and then they trip up 2 other times, and I don't know exactly who that's going to be against, but some combination of, at the time, it looked like Louisville, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, somebody else in there. But they got by Louisville easily. And so this team is going to be favored. Where's the North Carolina game? At home, right? This team is going to be favored the rest of the season. They're going to be favored every game. They play at Blacksburg, I believe. That game's on the road. So that might be, they might be a slight underdog just because they're on the road in that game, but maybe not. If I can get my computer going here. Doesn't that drive you nuts? Play action fakes on 3rd and 20. If you want to go back and watch football played like in the 1980s when they were first passing the ball like a lot, they'll do that. But that should not be happening now, especially with the quarterback has to sometimes turn his back to the defense. Receivers actually came to play against Virginia. I would agree, Chris. I didn't see any poor play out of the receivers. That's a good call because that's been an issue. Sampson, need to get Jordan and Mallory on the field at the same time more consistently. That'll open our run game. Yeah, to get those guys both on the field at the same time. Exactly. Mr. HD, Mike Harley ain't getting no pass with me after that BS he said after the game. I would love to see what he said. I'll have to get into that. Okay, Ronan, thank you so much. Ronan's caught the vision. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I certainly also appreciate that everybody cannot and is not in the position to help support us financially, but that's what we will need is I'm searching out revenue streams. So you're going to see, hopefully you're going to see sponsors, you're going to see Patreon, which we're working on. And certainly we've got a Patreon page right now. We're going to work on revenue streams in every possible direction because that's the only way this will work. So Ronan, we thank you so much for the contribution. Love the show and keep up the great work, Mark. This donation may have been better spent trying to buy out Blake Baker. Go Canes. Well, I will say, Ronan, that it is much more appreciated here. And you might have to add a few zeros to that to take that in the other direction. So it will be put to good use here. Ronan, I don't care if he played one good game on Saturday. It's 3 years overdue, and his comments after the game wipe it out. My evaluation of Mike Harley, and this is coming from a non-Miami fan. This is coming from a guy that watches college football and watches as much as anybody. And I'm not an expert in regards to X's and O's, but I played a little football in high school, and like you, I pick things up after watching year after thousands of hours. So I know more than most, but then I put that together with what I'm taught by others in the coaching ranks and have learned. So I haven't studied Mike Harley. So it's just a perception is that he's been capable. He's been serviceable, might be the best word. He's not a game changer. In the past, he's not been. Now, just watching this game, he made about 3 plays that were key to the win, that were very key to the win. But I haven't seen that out of him on a regular basis. So to Ronan's point, yeah, he plays a good game and then he talks. Apparently, I've got to look up these comments. I'm curious. Chuck C, thank you so much. This guy, I tell you, it's amazing what he does in contributing to the channel as well. Chuck C, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Mark, thanks for being on this Monday afternoon. Have to get on a conference call in 5 minutes, but nice vacay for my brain the past 20 minutes. That's good to know. And I love when people tell us, hey, I had to work today, or I had to do this or that, or I had to work around the house or whatever, or I went on a long drive and you kind of bailed me out to a certain extent. You gave me some relief. So that's always nice to hear. Yeah, we were talking about teaching young people and their attention span. And I think James has it down pretty much scientifically correct. 1.5 milliseconds. Robert Reed, this base acts like we have a third-year quarterback in the system with chemistry amongst wide receivers. We had no spring with a quarterback transfer lineman. Of course, Jared Williams in particular, 2 freshman running backs in heavy rotation. It's this thing they call patience. It's a good point. It's a good point. Now, let's also understand that there are teams across the nation. College football is transient. I would love to see a study done, and I would try to figure out how this the best way to add all this up would be to measure the continuity in college football among teammates versus the NFL. Because the NFL careers are not long either because of injury. Most people point to injury, and that's not even the number one factor, but I won't go into that right now. People, I hear it all the time when it's stated, the average NFL player only plays 2.5 years, and then that's an injury statement because they get hurt and they can't play anymore. No, that's not most of it. Anyway, college football is transient. We see these guys a lot of them play for 1 year, meaning by the time they develop to the point that we see them on the field enough to get familiar with them because they were playing a little special teams as freshmen and sophomores, and then they might play as a junior or 2 years. And then the guys that we see 3 or 4 years, it's wow, this guy's been around forever. So they don't typically, you can't point to too many teams across the nation and say they've really played together. Now, Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne are working on those two guys. It's just those two are working on 3 years together now. The offensive line is entirely new for Clemson this year, except for Jackson Carman. But it's a good point. Chuck C. says, let's pump the brakes on Lashley, but I'm all for having a conversation about Blake Baker. Low enthusiasm for a D coordinator. No. As James mentions, Miami has had 3 to 4 different offensive coordinators. Phil, I knew you were going to say that. I agree. I get it. I was just mentioning my evaluation of Kendall Briles coming into the system at Florida State. What he had accomplished elsewhere was impressive. And I think it's worth noting. It's not the complete story. Sometimes there are other factors. But if you look at an offensive or a defensive coordinator and you look at the rankings for that offense or defense before they arrived, while they were there, and then when they left, I think it's telling. It's not everything, but it's telling. Alex Grinch, currently at Oklahoma, passed through Ohio State for 1 year, maybe 2. When he was at Washington State, he went there and was added to Mike Leach's staff, and Washington State typically had a defense that was ranked 100th, 110th in the country, and he raised them to top 25, 30 status. And then he left and back down. James says, Florida State players have a mentality of, I don't get my way, I want to fight. Yeah, I would think there is, oh my goodness. There's, I don't want to group them all together because when you got 100 guys out there, obviously some of them are selfish, other ones are great guys. They're all over the map. But I would say that there are serious issues in that program because they have too much talent to be playing like this. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's George, Mark.
Hey, George.
I just called. I know this has to be a quick call because you have a conference call coming up.
I got a conference call. Oh, my goodness. Do I?
A few minutes ago, did you say you had something to do?
I don't have anything to do. I've got a lot to do. Believe me, I've got a to-do list that's like 88 items long, but no conference call.
I must have misunderstood. It was like 5 minutes ago.
No. No, we're good. What's up?
Well, number one, you didn't put an honorable mention in for Kyle Trask for Heisman. I was a little stunned, but I'm over it now. It's okay.
So you checked out that video. Now, I did do one a couple weeks ago, and I put him in there. I totally forgot about. I'm kidding to a certain extent, but you could almost forget about him at this point. It's like he hasn't played for a month.
I know. I don't even know what to say. It's true. Kyle and Kyle both long forgotten and 2 weeks off.
But he's having a great season. He's a great quarterback. He'll be good, and we will get him back in our good graces once he gets on the field and throws a few touchdowns.
Everybody has their problems. Florida's defense. I know we're playing everybody out of position, trying to cross-train everybody because no one knows what might happen and that kind of stuff. But I hope they get it together. And it's the same with Miami. I mean, you just got to try different combinations and hope it works out. But I'd be happy as heck about Miami.
Sure, they're 5-1. Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, all I care about is the W. This is 2020. It's a crazy year.
Yeah, look at Penn State. You could be Penn State right now.
Is Mertz out?
We're waiting for a second COVID test.
This is just insane. Like the number one stud quarterback in the country, maybe he tests positive, is asymptomatic. There's nothing wrong with the guy, but you better believe that test. It's that darn COVID. This is just ridiculous.
Look at what happened. I don't know that too many people really talked about the situation surrounding Nick Saban and how fascinating that was. That we were sitting here on like a Wednesday and found out that Nick Saban tested positive, and then he was coaching on Saturday, and everything was fine.
Called me today, and we talked about that for a minute. And I was like, "What's going on here, man? Did everybody miss that, or what?"
I tell you,
he did this. He pulled a Trump on us. He got better in 3 days.
he got better in a hurry. Yeah, 68-year-old dude, just like you said, with Trump, 75-year-old guy, and not an issue.
Mark,
yes, sir.
Jokingly, people. I live in Southeast Portland, Oregon. I'm surrounded by at least 10,000 homeless people. There's no street you can drive on where people aren't living in tents on the side of the road. And it's not just that they have tents, they have their car up on blocks, they have burned out vehicles. It truly looks like Somalia, right? So I jokingly tell all my friends, methamphetamine must be the cure for coronavirus because these people are actually thriving. I think they're having children and raising them, It's just a big joke, man. These people don't wash, they don't bathe, they don't eat. They have no hygiene.
George,
we
we always love to hear from you, but this is a Miami channel. We're talking Miami football here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to say go Miami. Proud of you. Good job. They beat Florida State's ass. Know that. I remember that.
George, I got your comment about the ads. I will try to address that. I will try to do. It's a mystery as to what goes on with all that. So.
I kept forgetting to tell you this. I said this to Gator Dave once, the Gator breakdown. I said, dude, they got 25 commercials on your video. No one's going to watch it. He typed back to me about 1 minute later. I fixed it. So ask Dave. There's a way to control that. Today, when I watched their videos, there was a 5-second one that went over. No one cares. And then the video started. And then in the middle, there was a 5-second one, and it went over. No one cares. And then there might have been one more 5-second one. That is acceptable. Anything else, it blows people's minds.
Well, that's what I have my settings on. I have it for the commercial that you can click out of in 5 seconds.
The click out isn't good enough. It needs to just end in 5 seconds because the problem with a click out is if I put your show on and get a shower or do dishes.
Oh, I gotcha.
I can't keep looking over the phone and click all the time.
That's a good point. It's a good point. That's fair. All right.
And Mark, the commercials you don't click out of, they will just go on. There has to be a regulation for how long they go if you don't click.
Oh, I know. I know. I'll be on YouTube, and if I'm doing something and I just get YouTube running, like I just figure it's a 30-second commercial. No, it's like a 5-minute infomercial. It's like goes on forever. Yep.
You're learning about the gut.
Yeah. I gotta keep that in mind because I don't think about people doing other stuff and they can't be at their phone. Yeah. All right. Appreciate that, man.
I do think Miami could go undefeated the rest of the year, and maybe until they see Clemson. I don't know what they're so worried about.
They want to beat Clemson.
They're playing with heart. It does help to have a quarterback. And what's his name? Jaron Williams or the backup guy. If he ever does have to come back in, he's been behind King now. It's a different mindset. Nobody's getting high in the quarterback room this year or whatever the hell they were doing last year. I don't know.
All right, George. Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great night.
Bye.
That's our man, George, Gators fan calling the Miami show. And George, again, has commented more to this channel and my main channel than anybody. It's amazing. All right, Shay. Come on now. My favorite Miami hater, Mark Rogers. The Miami hater that picked the Canes to go 8-4 last year and they went 6-6. That picked the Canes to go 9-3 the year before they went 7-5. That built a Miami channel that comes on here and brings on the best bloggers and broadcasters that we can find. I get dubbed a Miami hater as soon as I pick them not to win a game. Actually, I picked Miami to only lose to Clemson by a touchdown. I have overestimated Miami through most of this. Will is telling us that Rhett had one good year at SMU. That would have been with Chad Morris as the head coach, correct? Or was that with Sonny Dykes? That would have been with Sonny Dykes, I guess. All right, let's get through this here. Where are we? I've lost track. All right. If I missed your comment, I apologize. The comments I'm not able to keep up with at the same rate that you are. Anyway, Hurricane Logan, the stretch after this bye week is tougher, harder opponents, and Manny is 0-4 on bye weeks. That's the point that I made when I first jumped on about this being a bye week before North Carolina State. Yeah, Virginia Tech, North Carolina. Those two in particular. So let's see, 5-1, 6 games, 11 games total, 5 games to go. Virginia Tech, North Carolina State. Georgia Tech. Boston College. I don't. The schedule's so screwed up because there are no divisions. I can't keep track of. Like last year, it's easy to remember. Miami played everyone in the Coastal. They always play Florida State. They played the other one that they played out of division was Syracuse 2 years ago. So it must have been Boston College. No, Boston College. Whoever they played, the other, not Louisville, Wake Forest. They were supposed to play Wake Forest. That was supposed to be their other out of division game this year. Oh my goodness, who was it? Anyway, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Dave Knight.
Hey, Dave, what's going on?
Hey, I think I've talked about this before, but I think the real curiosity for me and the Miami football team is where they do the bulk of the recruiting for their offensive linemen. And, I'm guessing it's within the state of Florida, but do they ever look outside the state of Florida? And maybe some of the people in the side chat could answer some of those questions, because there's, definitely a lot of talent around the geographical area of the state of Florida. I'm not talking about your skill positions, but more about the offensive linemen. And if that's really what they're really, truly lacking, why aren't they expanding a little bit? Go ahead and run with that if you can.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the roster, and I could tell you that if I could type with one finger here, one hand. Dave, we talk about all the things that need to be upgraded around here in regards to my show, and first and foremost is this whole call-in system. So my hand should be free right now, so I can look this up. But anyway, I would love to look at the roster and see. I'm going to take a stab at that. Most of the offensive line talent, like any other positional unit, is from Florida.
So, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that if you're not getting what you need in your local vicinity, don't you decide to go outwards, like in a different trajectory because it's like saying, if I analyze a problem with my job or my work, then I'm looking at how can I fix this. So I'm going to go outside of what I've done typically to secure what I used to have in the past.
Well, the two things we would need to know is, number one, to look at the Miami roster and see, okay, out of 14 offensive linemen on the roster, they have X number from Florida, let's say. But then also to go to the last 4 to 5 years of recruiting classes, look at the top 30 to 40 offensive tackles, guards, and maybe the top 15 centers, and see how many are from Florida and where they're located in Florida, and if they're going to Miami. That would be
gotcha. That does make sense, Mark. That does make sense.
And I really can't answer that. They've not been able to sign a big-time quarterback either for a long time.
But, what do you think, about the state of Georgia? They have a lot of talent in there. And then if Miami could, bounce over to the state of Texas, which a lot of other college football teams, your team goes into Texas and pulls out some nice players, right?
Exactly. That is the first state that I thought of when you mentioned offensive linemen. Where do you go to get offensive linemen? I'd go to Texas. 15 offensive linemen on the roster, 8 are from Florida. So roughly half.
Yeah, that's and I was talking to I think David Greenshield in the side chat. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan all have what I call those strong linemen, right? I'm not saying they're corn-fed, blah, 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 but they have those strong linemen, and maybe they should come up north a little bit. I mean, I would tell you, if I didn't have a favorite school I wanted to go to, and somebody say, hey, you come and play with me in Miami, because Miami is supposed to be a strong academic school. So then you're in nice weather for at least 4 to 5 years. It's like, man, who wouldn't want to do that if you really didn't have a particular favorite
Sure.
as far as your college went?
This might be a video for me to look at. Analyze offensive line recruiting at Miami. I'm serious.
I'm saying you got to do that.
I'm serious. I like doing stuff like this. It just takes too long, and I got to churn out 50 videos a day, and I can only churn out a few less.
Yeah.
If I take 3 hours analyzing Miami's offensive line, but this is the stuff I love.
Well, I find it interesting. I mean, the other thing is that and you and I have talked about this before. The impetus for your teams begins with your offensive line and the defensive line, and you move outward to build it. And I think Miami, for whatever reason, and even Florida State, Florida, and probably UCF, they can recruit pretty good defensive linemen. And why I don't get it translates into offensive linemen, that's something I just don't know about.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've got to think that the state of Florida is producing good enough offensive linemen. I don't think that's the issue.
Yeah,
I don't think that they have to leave.
Piece of the puzzle
Florida.
missing. Okay, so I'm going to let somebody else call, but so I'm waiting to see my first Mark Rogers Ohio State hype video. I hope I'm not going to wait for too long. Okay.
Hype video. Yeah, you heard my comment on that. That's going to be hilarious if I can figure out. I got to watch some hype videos first to figure out what a hype video actually is, and then we'll maybe take a little spoof on one. I don't know what we're going to do. We'll have to do something there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I sent you email on that. I think if you get just really your name saturated on YouTube, that as I put it in the email, people will connect the dots. It's like, man, this Mark Rogers is kind of a jack of all trades. He does this, he does this, he does this. And when they see what you're doing, they're going to come looking for it. So I got nothing but high expectations of yourself, sir.
You know what they say about the jack of all trades, though.
Master of none. That's just the same.
So, Dave, I loved this, and then we'll get back to Miami football because I'm probably putting people to sleep. Or probably I'm losing like 50 viewers, but anyway.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Let me hang up and take some more calls. Mark.
Well, I'm gonna say something. This will be directed somewhat at you, but I will hang up the call, and you can listen to my little story. All right, Dave. Have a good night.
You too, sir. Bye-bye.
So that brings to mind that I've had a couple people that have commented that when College Game Day was obviously on campus, not this particular year, the year of 2020 being what it is, but when College Game Day was on campuses, they said, you know what we should do, Mark? We should make your signs. We should make signs, the voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV, whatever, and stand out on the campus. And I was like, go for it. There was also a situation, this was about maybe a year ago, that somebody contacted me and said that they heard my name on the Paul Feinbaum show. And because I worked at ESPN at the time, and I could go back on our database and I could look at any show. If you said, go look at First Take last Tuesday, or go look at the 6 o'clock Sports Center, last November 7th or whatever the date, I could go back and I could look at any show at any point. So I asked this person, I said, well, can you give me a day, and can you give me roughly a time in the show where I could find this? So anyway, I find this where somebody called up Paul Feinbaum and said, I'm sure you know Mark Rogers TV. Well, he said the other day, da, 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 da. And it was just funny to see Paul Feinbaum's reaction after this person called up and said, I'm sure you know who Mark Rogers TV is. And then they said, da, 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 da. Well, he said X, Y, and Z. And I thought, man, I need to go on a campaign, and I need to get all of you to be calling national shows like Cowherd and Feinbaum and this Packer and Durham show, and be laying down Mark Rogers TV. That would be tremendous. The voice of college football. Myrick is saying here that he basically said that the wide receivers, okay, this would be Mike Harley, I believe. Mike Harley said that the wide receivers just started putting extra reps in after practice last week. Is that an issue with him saying that? We've got a guy in here, Rye Dude. Your channel bad. It's a tremendous statement. Just I am fascinated by the time spent by certain people in what they devote their time to. Going on some channel that they obviously could care less about, and typing that like 800 times. All right. So we'll block that moron and continue from there. We do have moderators on our main channel, and they make it over here maybe once in a while, but not consistently. Anthony, does Miami play to the level of their opponents? Seems like it. That seems to be the case for quite some time now. Yeah, Will, I finally got around to deleting that guy. Finally, 25 minutes late. My apologies. It always takes me time to catch up to the live chat here. Clavon, hope I pronounced your first name correctly. Clavon Bostic. Mike Harley said that the Whiteouts were doing their bare minimum to get by this season in practice until they were targeted last week. Well, so people were pissed at Mike Harley saying that. I would be interested to know whether he included that he was part of that group that was doing the bare minimum, or was he saying the wide receivers, those guys, the rest of the guys were doing the bare minimum, or was he saying me as a wide receiver, and all of us were doing the bare minimum. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark, and Logan. It's been a while.
Logan, what's going on? It's good to hear from you.
Happy to be 5-1. That's really the nicest way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm bracing for a letdown now.
No, I mean there's not really any letdown. I mean, like I've said, and people haven't really liked it. We're just an above average team. It's that, you know. There's a long way to go. We got a lot of new people in the staff, and you know they got to get their things set in play and their recruits that they want for their schemes. You know.
Well, you may have heard me say a few minutes ago that I would really be interested to see Miami play somebody on its level. You know, you guys took on Clemson. We saw what happened there. And now it's a bunch of Virginia, Louisville, and Florida State and so forth, and Pitt. And you're much better than those teams. And you're doing what you should be doing. Well, I don't even know that. You just beat Virginia by 5 points. That should be a 14 to 21 point win. But I would love to see,
you know, an example of what Clemson did to Georgia Tech. I'm not saying Miami should do something like that, but we should beat those type of opponents that we're clearly better than by, like you said, I'd say 17 to 21 points.
Yep. Yeah, you should beat Virginia. I certainly didn't think twice about taking Miami covering 13.5 points. I didn't even think about that. I just moved on to the next game. I went, they should cover 13.5, move on to the next game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the big thing that I've noticed with the fan base too is, you know, we say, oh yeah, you know, we should really spank North Carolina State, you know, and then the game starts getting close and people start doing some analytics. Oh, well, this might be a problem. That might be a problem. You know, at the end of the day, it's North Carolina State. It's not a top 10 team. You know, we're not at that caliber to where we can go in and play top 10 opponents and be like, you know what, we should win this game. You know, every game is a question, and those aren't even against top 10 opponents.
Sure.
I've always said I think North Carolina State is pretty underrated this season. I mean, when they were 4-1, I believe they just lost. However, like I said, I do really believe North Carolina State is a pretty good team, and they're going to give us a fight. And the biggest thing about this is it's coming off of a bye week, which Manny is never won out of a bye week.
So I'm with you on all that, because basically, if I read you, it's that if Miami comes up and plays its best, and even if North Carolina State plays its best, Miami should win this game by 14 to 21 points. You know, this should be a 38 to 20 game, you know, 41-24 game, something in that range, or maybe they don't even score that many points. But if Miami messes around and plays a C game and North Carolina State really comes to play, as you need to expect them to, then we're going to see a dogfight to the end. This game, if you really break down this game against Virginia, it's easy to see that Miami's a better team if you just watch every play and you're not looking at the scoreboard. But by the end of the game, you see Virginia scores to make it 19 to 14, and they're one play away from pulling off an upset that they had no business being in.
Exactly. And according to Blake Baker, that last touchdown Virginia had was a big miscommunication and something that can quote-unquote be fixed, which I've heard for 50 years. So I'll kind of leave that guy alone with that. However, you know, the big thing I saw with last game is, you know, it just wasn't working. I'm not saying he's a bad running back, because he's definitely not. But Cam Harris, you know, it just wasn't working that game. Donald Chaney, it was working. If Donald Chaney would have got a lot more reps, I think he's, in my opinion, our running back one. I think he's our top running back. He's just on a different level compared to those other two running backs. And, you know, with the tweet that Cam Harris put out, it was directed, I believe, at the running backs coach, because he doesn't feel like he's getting a fair amount of playing time because of, obviously, there's younger guys under him. You know, I saw a Rex interview today. He kind of just blew it off like, oh, I don't think it meant anything. You know, you'd have to ask him. You know, that's not okay. You're the leader of this offense, and you can't allow that kind of thing. What makes teams great and what made Miami great back in the day was competition. And you got to be willing to stick it out and compete or kick rocks.
I don't know why it was, but back in the Pitt game, there was a series where Miami was at its own 4 or 5 yard line, and they gave the ball to Cheney 2 consecutive carries, and they weren't like 50-yard runs or anything, but there was just a little bit of a crease, just a little bit of one, just a little bit of push on the right side, and he turned both of those runs. He was dragging guys, he was sidestepping guys. He turned those both into like 12 or 14-yard runs, and right there was one of the examples for me that I think he's the guy that should get the ball the most.
And I love that somebody who's not a Miami fan can see that same perspective that I do, because a lot of people are disagreeing with me, which is fine. We all have our opinions, but at the end of the day, the offensive line is still a pretty good weakness in this team. I don't think people have noticed that, especially with the run blocking. However, when you look at the sacks and the way that we played third downs last year, and even our red zone offense, I mean, those were all statistically last. And it's definitely not the case this year, but it's still something that needs to work on. And I believe if we maintain the staff, we'll be able to fix those issues over time.
Yeah, we shall see. I'm going to be fascinated to see you guys in particular against Virginia Tech and North Carolina.
Yes, exactly. And I wish they were both ranked number one and the best team in the world. And I think we play in better than we would for what they are now. You know, a lot of Miami fans are looking forward to playing Clemson again. I'll tell you one thing, man, I'm not. I'm sorry. It sucks to say, but, you know, Clemson is just light years ahead of Miami. And we're not as talented as people think we are. I'm pretty sure if we were, then we would at least have somebody on the offense that's wide receiver one. At least somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we don't have that.
Yeah, that's disappointing, because once we got into this season and it was pretty obvious that the wide receivers were not making plays and not separating, I just thought going into the season that was for everybody kind of a given. Nobody was concerned about the wide receivers. People were concerned about losing talent in the secondary. People were obviously the offensive line. There were other areas that were a concern, but people didn't give much attention. It didn't seem, based on what I listened to, the offensive line.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly correct. And even moving forward, a big thing that I don't think people have realized is Brevin, he struggles to stay healthy. And when he's out, I mean, if you break down some of the plays that don't really go successful that should, a lot of it has to do because Brevin's not there blocking. That's the biggest thing that separates him from all the tight ends on our team, is he's always there making key blocks that will take you from 2 to 3 yards to 10 plus. And that's one thing that we're missing out of Brevin, unfortunately, besides obviously being the best tight end on our team.
Yeah, I don't know if it was you. You might have made the comment in the chat about getting Mallory and Brevin Jordan on the field together.
Yeah, that wasn't me, but that's something I've always agreed with. Double tight end is all day something better. It's going to be a better look for Miami. And there's been very few times where we've seen that and it turned in and it was a negative play. So I think as the season goes on, like people are saying, there's a lot of variables because 2020 is such a mess, especially with college football. But I think as the season goes on, the offense will open up more and we'll understand what works and who the guys are. And I think that it just takes a lot more time and playing time and game time to gel together. And I think it should fall together better next season, hopefully.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Thanks for letting me on.
Of course.
Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you, man. Thank you so much. We're back on Facebook, by the way. So
I'm already following you. I got you.
Oh, man. Really? I just did that last night. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm a little social media nerd. I'm always on Twitter and Facebook. So.
Okay, cool. Well, Hurricane Logan, it's always a pleasure.
Take care.
I appreciate it. Bye-bye. Hurricane Logan, he is locked in, and he always has many things very astute to say. Got a super chat coming in. I'll get to that in just a second. Thank you so much. I want to get through all these comments. And I apologize. I will let me get the number on. This is a little graphics component to all this that I discovered the other day, thanks to Jason Parker. Actually, here we go. Where can I find it? Let me hang on just a second. Let's get the phone number up here. Here we go. Give me just a second to edit this banner. There we go. That way you can see the number all the time. 860-325-3687. Let me get back to our live chat. Truth be known, I posted a screenshot of a comment coming in the other day where somebody was all over me for being a Buckeye hater. You know where I ranked Ohio State this week? If anybody checked out my top 25, that actually makes sense. I got obliterated for this because people don't understand how I put the rankings together. Ohio State, number 12. I've got Miami at number 8 or 9? 9. I think the Canes are 11 or 12 in the national rankings, according to the coaches and the AP. I've got Miami at number 9, and I've got Ohio State at 12. Chris Bradford says, Rhett Lashley was at SMU for 2 years, I believe. He also made UConn's offense not look absolutely atrocious. Yeah, maybe I'm going to do 2 videos here if I have time, because I'm trying to populate like 4 other channels. But I really want to break down this Miami recruiting on the offensive line, and also Rhett Lashley's effectiveness at other schools. I am curious to see how effective he's been in improving offensive numbers at other schools. Thank you, Robert. So these are the final games, I believe. Yeah, the final 5 games. They're 5-1, 6 games, 11 total. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, North Carolina State, Virginia Tech. So certainly the Virginia Tech and North Carolina games are the toughest. North Carolina is the toughest game. Virginia Tech second, by far. Wake Forest is playing better football now. They got off to a rocky start. North Carolina State, then you can go 3-4, 4-3 between those two, and then Georgia Tech's the worst. But the Georgia Tech team that beat Miami last year isn't nearly as good as the Georgia Tech team that's playing, even though they lost by 66 points to Clemson. Jeff Collins is doing a nice job there. They've won, 3 games? Georgia Tech, they beat Louisville. They beat Louisville by 19 points a couple of weeks ago. I watched that game. They, of course, beat Florida State in week 1. Georgia Tech's on the rise. Now, should they beat Miami? No. But if you mess around with them, they're more capable this year of pulling off an upset. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Oh, hey, this is Shione. My username or handle is the Club King.
Oh, yeah. What's going on?
Hey, well, I'm just shocked that I got through. So, so still kind of dumbfounded.
No, I appreciate you calling.
Long time watcher, first time caller. So my question is, not my question, something I noticed watching the Virginia game was that the Miami offensive line seemed to get really gassed towards the end of the game or the second half, and they also seemed to stop pushing the ball, blocking people more towards the end or second half mostly.
Yeah, that's something you don't normally see. You don't see the offensive line gassed. You typically see the offensive line leaning and wearing on the defensive front, and they're gassed. But that's something that you got to take into consideration, is that when this up-tempo offense is being executed, that those big guys, they've got to, if you're moving the ball at 15 and 20 yards a clip at times, and Miami didn't do it too much in this game, but those offensive line, they've got to get downfield and they've got to set up for the next snap. And they're not getting that rotation in and out like the wide receivers are. It's typically you're going with 5 offensive linemen, and they're the 5 guys on the field. I don't hear too many people. I don't hear anybody talk about that.
I'm a former. My highest level was junior college, but I watch offensive line play all the time. So for me, it was just disheartening seeing them stop halfway through the blocks and just kind of let the play die.
So do you think this offensive line, since you're an offensive line guy, do you think this line in 2020 is better than the one last year?
I think they're playing better. I don't know if they are talent level better. As a unit, they play better.
Okay.
But that was my only thing I wanted to say. I enjoy your show, and everyone out there, smash that like button.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate you calling in. You are welcome to call anytime, sir.
All right, have a good one.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, here on our Miami channel, breaking down the game against Virginia and, of course, looking ahead to North Carolina State. We got Cam Underwood coming our way, I believe, on Thursday night. We're still going back and forth on email trying to determine a best time, but most likely that's going to be on Thursday night with Cam. We possibly will talk to the Wholesome One as well, get you all set for all the comings and goings and all the news and the updates on recruiting and anything else going on with Miami football, and certainly get their take on everything that we're talking here: wide receivers, quarterback play, offensive line, Lashley, Baker, the whole deal. And again, I'm would disappointed be the word. I would just love to see this team play a team at their level. And that's not going to happen. It may happen one time. North Carolina, Virginia Tech may be in the vicinity. Those would be the two teams. So I'm intrigued to see those games because the teams that they've beaten, they're far superior than. Louisville, we thought, was in that class. They're not. Defensively, they're a joke. Which shows you what Florida State's experiencing. So what we saw Florida State pull off against North Carolina in the first half was obviously a huge aberration. So Florida State fans got geeked, got hyped, got excited about that win against North Carolina, and rightfully so. They beat the fifth-ranked team in the country. I'll emphasize fifth-ranked team in the country, not the fifth best team in the country. Not maybe even the 15th best team in the country, but something in that range, the 15th or 20th best team in the country. But they had to hang on for dear life, and credit them with the win. But pick six on a deflected pass, special teams plays, all the things added up to their favor in the first half to make it 31-7. Then they wilted. Somebody ran a tweet the other day that showed how many points Florida State had scored in the second half of all its games this season. And if you take out Jacksonville State, they're all single digits, zeros and sixes and sevens, all of them. Why I brought that up, I don't know. There was something there. But just basically talking about the level of play of the teams that Miami's played thus far, that Louisville might be the best, even though they didn't show up that night, and they're just starting to find it, maybe. The college football season is fascinating for this. Look at what we just saw in the Big Ten. Everybody stepped on the field for the first time, and everybody jumps to a ton of conclusions based on one result. Well, we do have that one result, but suddenly Michigan throttles Minnesota. Well, we thought Minnesota was a good team. They were a really good team last year, a top 10 team. But now people are like, well, Minnesota must suck. So Michigan, they didn't prove anything. Well, we don't know. Let's watch. We have to watch more games. We can jump to a conclusion to a certain extent, which we have to evaluate the teams, but we're going to find out more. So with Miami, we're finding out kind of the same thing with Louisville, with Pitt, with Florida State, with Virginia. Now we'll probably find out the same thing with North Carolina State because they're all pretty much the same team, almost. They're all between about 45 and 60 in the country. So we're not finding out a whole lot about Miami in beating all these teams, except for Florida State, who they just annihilated in a pretty 1-2 score way. We would find out about Miami if they were playing Texas A&M this week, or if they were playing Notre Dame. That should be on the schedule. Or if they were playing Penn State or somebody. But North Carolina's coming. And maybe Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's an odd team. They've looked really good at times this year. They just lost to Wake Forest. Yeah, they just lost to Wake Forest. James is telling us that Florida linemen have not been good at Miami. So what I'm guessing is that has little to do with, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to honor the super chat. Dwayne, I think you got another one in there. I will get to it. My apologies because I had it on the screen and forgot about it. Dwayne Baker 305. Let's be real, Mark. This team is not a college football playoff team. Well, I certainly never said that. May not be an ACC championship team. That's going to be fascinating to see the run for number 2 in the ACC. We can outline that in just a second. All I want is this for this team is to win the next game by 1 point, by 10 points, 30, just win. First year staff. Good point. So think about what a staff has to do every time there's a new staff at a college football program. Not even talking 2020 when they didn't have spring practice, when they didn't have most of their summer, and they had all the challenges of think about this. The time that was 100% devoted to football, and when I say 100%, 97% devoted to football in the past, this year probably was like 75 or 80% football, and that other 20 or 25% had to be COVID guidelines, testing, talking to the players about mask regulations, and we need to do this, and we're going to set up our film room like this, or our meeting room like this, and you're going to be spread out. We're going to do da-da-da-da-da. Think about the time consumption of just going through the COVID safety and health guidelines versus that all being devoted to football in the past. All right. Have a little sympathy for your Florida State brethren in this way, because even though this is a new coaching staff in regards to offense, the new coordinators, of course, Mandy Diaz is back as head coach, but especially for an entirely new staff, they didn't have spring practice. And again, they had to devote so much time to all this health situation that they couldn't concentrate on football as much as they typically would. And think about the challenge of a coaching staff having to take on a football program in any offseason, and you're implementing new offense, new defense. You're implementing just a new vibe. You're typically taking over when there's a new coaching staff. There's a reason there's a new coaching staff. It's typically because the program is failing. They got rid of the old guy. Sometimes he moves on to a better job, but typically it's because he got fired. Butch Jones, Tennessee. Willie Taggart, Florida State. Brady Hoke, Michigan. We could go through everybody. There's rarely a Bob Stoops, Oklahoma. Okay, he's got a great elite program. He's moving on to retire and play golf. It's usually because the program is not succeeding. So you've got new coaching staff. So you've got to just create a environment. You have to be on the same page to just say, who are we? And you've got coaches who have never worked together before. And suddenly they're a coaching staff. And maybe a few of them have been in coaching clinics, or maybe they worked together 9 years ago for 2 seasons at Washington State. But basically, you're bringing an organization together for the first time. And you've got this disconnect between all these coaches and all the guys that they have to bring and relate to that are 20 and 30 years younger than they are. And there's 100 of them. And they're thinking about their girlfriends, and they're thinking about partying on Saturday night. And they're thinking about some of them trying to pass a class or whatever they're thinking about, or maybe their mom's sick. Some of them think they're NFL players and they're really not. There's all sorts of stuff going on there. So this coaching staff has to come together. They have to gel before they can think about the entire team coming together and gelling the entire team. They've got to come together as a coaching staff. And so then on top of that, they have to work out terminology amongst themselves. For example, somebody gave me the example the other day of Steve Sarkisian at Alabama, basically for a couple years going around with a card that had his terminology and then the conversion to the Saban terminology. So he'd call a play and he'd be like, oh, well, I would call that. Okay, now I got to call it that. Okay. So then the coaching staff has to come together. They have to get on page with what the head coach, what type of culture he's building. So terminology has to be communicated and understood. The structuring of how we run a program, how we run practice, how we communicate, and then all the relationships have to be built. There's a difference between a player responding to the coach that recruited and signed them as a defensive backs coach that they knew since they were a sophomore in high school, and responding to him, the guy that they've known for 5 years, versus this is a new dude. I have no idea who he is. I heard he came from Baylor. Okay. I don't know this guy. Can I trust him? I know he wants to make money and he wants to win because it's going to help his career. What's in it for me? So trying to build that trust and communication with all the position coaches relating to their position players and bringing that all together in one off season without spring practice, it's a challenge, to say the least. And as I like to remind people from time to time, in competitive athletics, somebody has to look bad. Meaning, whether you're a factory worker or you sell insurance or you sell cars or whatever you do, there's nobody fighting you in regards to you succeeding at your job. Your job, sure, you could be given good resources and tools and communication and supported and set up to win or to fail. Yes, but it's largely up to you to determine whether you're successful. In this industry of competitive athletics, you've got, let's say, Miami, you got Virginia. They played Saturday night. Somebody succeeded, somebody failed. Pretty much every play. You could look at every play and say, Miami gained 15 yards, Virginia gave up 15 yards. Win Miami. Miami lost 3 yards on the next play. Virginia won that play. And then it all adds up to a final result. Miami 19, Virginia 14. Virginia failed. The players could have played their hearts out. They could have executed the plays. They could have done everything they possibly could. Of course, they made mistakes. The coaches could have made the right calls, had a very sound strategy, but somebody has to lose. Somebody looks bad. Somebody is a failure. Now, I don't believe that in my heart that they're a failure. I don't mean it like that, but the mission is to win the game. And if you don't, you failed. So not everybody can look good. Somebody's got to look bad. Every Saturday, somebody looks bad. Somebody failed. Everybody could be great at what they do, but somebody failed. You could have the greatest coaches on both sides. You could have Nick Saban against Urban Meyer, and you could have the best assistant coaches ever. You could have put together 2 all-star teams of all-time great players on both teams, and they play each other, and the final score is 35-31. It came down to the last second. Well, somebody lost. You failed. That's a tough deal. I compare that to, let's say, another entertainment that most of us enjoy would be movies or TV, acting. These guys don't get a take 2, take 3, take 37. You didn't get it right. You didn't read your lines right. You didn't come in at the right time. Okay, take 2, take 3. We see this great motion picture. Well, it took forever to make the thing. For as boring and stupid as those soap operas were back in the day, you had to at least credit those people with they were doing it like that. They were cranking those things out every day. They couldn't mess around. They just taped them and did them and boop, slapped them together. And they had to get it right the first time or the second time, maybe. Then boom. So these athletes don't get a second take. What's out there is out there for everybody to see. So, Dwayne, thank you so much for the contribution. I appreciate that so much. And I thought there was another one on here. Anyway, thank you so much for that. It's very nice of you. Dennis, I will say this. Al Davis, genius in terms of building a football operation until he got full of himself to some degree. And you're right, just win, baby. But until there's the final game, let's say Miami made it to the national championship game, and let's say they played just a really dysfunctional game, but the other team gave it to them, and Miami wins the national championship. Let's say they win it 12-9. It's the ugliest championship game ever, and we all agree, wink, wink, the other team just didn't show up, gave them 5 turnovers that were not forced by Miami. It was just a gift of a game. Who cares? You won the national championship. Who cares? It's over. It doesn't matter. Even if you don't even feel like you deserved it, you won it. That's all that matters. Yes, just win. But the difference between that is the season's over. Nothing can be done. You accomplished it. In whatever fashion, you accomplished it. But before that, the issue is, okay, we won this week 19-14 against about the 50th best team in the country. Okay, that's great that we won. And if we continue to do that, that would be great. But most likely, if we continue to play like that, that we're not going to continue to win. So there's an evaluation process during the season to say, yeah, we're 5-1. Yeah, we're winning. But when that opponent's better, when that opponent's North Carolina, when that opponent's Virginia Tech possibly, or an ACC championship game, we got to play better than that, or we're not going to stay at one loss. So that's the difference there. Bottom line, just win, baby. But until that last game's played, there's a reason to say we won, but we're concerned because it doesn't look too good. James says King hasn't really had time to develop connection with receivers either. And we talked about that. Chuck C's on the line. Got to take some licks to take some steps. Would rather take the risk of another 25-point loss than sit at home watching. I would agree with that. Rather take the shot, and maybe it's 38-3 like it was in the 2017 ACC championship game, or 42-17 like it was a month ago. Yes, Chuck C. Bama lost to Louisiana Monroe. For any college football fans under the age of 25 or 30, Alabama went 3-8 one year. Yes, they played 11 games then. 3-8. Yes. Everybody's been through it to some extent. Alabama lost to Louisiana. I think it was Louisiana Tech. I might be wrong on that, but I do think it was Louisiana Tech. But regardless, we get it. Yep. New King God, haven't seen you for a while. With another Lashley comment. Malachi, I would hope that you don't want to base your offense on trick plays. Trick plays are fun. They're effective when you need them, or when you think it's when you're setting up the defense for the trick play. You don't want to rely on trick plays. You may want to run one per game. I saw a play last weekend. I forget what game it was. It would have been, had the ball been intercepted, it would have been further in the backfield than any pass maybe I've ever seen in my life, where they were throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Not just were they behind the line, but they threw it backwards. And the guy jumped it. The corner jumped it from the get-go. He saw it all the way, and it hit him right off the shoulder. Like, he made a brilliant play to see the play, but he just was not prepared to catch the ball. And like the old adage says, there's a reason he's playing defensive back instead of wide receiver. and the ball goes right off his shoulder. But man, he was like 7 yards into the backfield. Chuck C., it's easy to see that most Canes fans are really just waiting for something bad to happen. I used to be one of those. I agree with George about just get in that game, see what happens. Sure. Carl, good to see you. Carl showed up the other day and bam, started laying out the comments and the questions. I think that was on SG1. So everybody here, keep in mind that we've made some agreements with SG1 College Football. So we're over there on Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time and Friday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time with live streams and call-in shows there as well as on my main channel. Elliot, that's what the last caller was talking about, the hurry up exhausting the offensive line. I didn't see it, but certainly could be the case. Got Tabardine here, curveball. Got some old friends here. Malachi, good to see you. So Dennis, that's good to hear in regards to enlightening me there. Yeah, you got to play more than 6 offensive linemen. I would say that, Elliot, the pass blocking is not horrible. It's the interior runs, especially in this game we just watched. Birmingham Kane, are you going live with Zoe? I have invited Zoe. Basically, Zoe and I are on great terms. He's my man. He knows that he can come on anytime he wants. So Birmingham Kane, if you would like Zoe on over here, just let him know. Mark's ready for you. But I tell him that all the time. Zoe, you've got an open invitation, but I know he's busy and has so much going on with what he's trying to build. That's where we stand on that. Chuck C., I'm a pretty happy Miami fan right now. Here's the step taken. Last year, lost tight games. This year, winning those games. Fair enough. Canes have controlled the games in large part, though, scores aside. They have controlled the game. Like, just to watch this game, you see 19-14, and you think that went down to the wire. But Miami was the better team. That was clear to see. Louisville held Notre Dame to 12 mark. That probably came in response to me talking about how bad Louisville's defense is. But in every other game, they've been awful. Yeah, I didn't see that game. I heard about it. I DVR'd it just like I do 22 other college football games every Saturday. I did not get around to it, but I heard that there were howling winds in the stadium and they had trouble throwing, that was part of the deal. Kyle says, Mark, when it comes to our Canes, it doesn't even matter who we're playing in regard to level. We play down to our competition. It's even more noticeable under Diaz. I thought this program had gotten past that with Mark Richt as head coach. Even though that ended poorly, he brought in the 8th best recruiting class in the country. You won your bowl game that first season against West Virginia for the first time in forever. It just looked like things were, and based on his track record at Georgia, even though many people criticize it for him not winning the national championship, it looked like you were in a place where, okay, Miami's ascending. We've got all sorts of people coming in and out of this chat. We've fluctuated from about 75 to 140. We're now at 116. That's typically not the case, but that's fine. What else do we have on the line? You can't really fairly rank teams early in the season. Totally get that, but people love rankings, so it's just going to continue. That is the golden play, isn't it? The fake quarterback draw where they throw it over the line. SDS 522 has laid out the goal for 2020. Win a semi-significant bowl game. I hope that's not the case, Brian. 125 watching, 7 likes. Please like the video. Just please do that. Elliot says, nothing wrong with the 2017 team. I hope you're kidding. Yeah, we don't need to bash them. They accomplished a 10-win season, a division championship, but they were a very flawed team. What else do we have? It's been a good show. I appreciate it. We were humming along there for a long time. Let's see what else we've got. This says Curveball came up with this. Miami's roster rank. Let me start over there. Miami's roster talent ranks 17th nationally. Virginia ranks 61st. That's about what I said. UVA only has 3 4-stars on the roster, and Miami can barely beat them. Miami defines doing less with more. For those of you who have heard this analysis, I posted a video about 6 months ago that I got to say, I was expecting to get just bombarded with criticism over this video, but all of you took it very well because I was just stating the facts and laying it out there. That Miami, I laid out the recruiting classes over the last 15 years and then the results. And the results are that since 2004, 2005, in that range, the last big season Miami had, they had like a 10-3 year in there. That this program has won 57% of its games, 57%. And I lined that up against the likes of Georgia Tech and others who were in that same range. 57% of its games. And consider that in the last 15 or 16 years, since the last time Miami finished in the top 10 in the final AP poll, that Miami has never finished in the AP top 10. The highest ranking was number 13 in 2017. That 43 other programs, 43, have finished in the top 10 in the nation. So that's basically 8 teams in the Power 5. Every Power 5 conference basically has 8 teams, 8 that have finished in the AP top 10 in the last 15 years. Because there's only a few group of 5s outside of the 5 conferences that have finished in the top 10. Houston, Boise State, UCF, there's only a few. So out of those 43, it's like 37, 38, 39 have been in the Power 5. I think that's startling. Miami Flow Football, good to see you for a second time, I believe, today. And I hope I'm not missing too much here, but we're going to check out this final super chat. It doesn't have to be the final super chat. Let me state it a different way. Michael Love, appreciate you each and every time, sir. Thanks for the live chat. Mark, great content as always. Michael, thank you so much for the contribution. You are much appreciated. We thank you so much. And again, I just have to say it each and every time. This guy makes me look like a slob. Maybe I've got to dress things up a little bit better here. If you check out the old videos on the main channel, like you have got to go back 5 years. You can see me with a nice suit jacket, good looking collared shirt. I used to dress it up. But Michael looks great. And thank you so much for the contribution and the continued encouragement and support. I love when I see somebody that I've never seen a comment from before say smash the like button, because typically that means either they showed up for the first time or the second time and they're just impressed and love what we do, or they've been hiding and lurking in the shadows for a long, long time and watching, just haven't said anything. Sir Fearing Pangborn, I just smashed the like button. I mean, hard. Came down on it. Thank you. Knox Kane 94. Mark, did the Big Ten get an unfair advantage starting late? Did they get more practice time? Well, they did get more practice time. Most of them, some of them had COVID issues. Rutgers, Michigan State at some point, Iowa at one point. I think Penn State did it at another point. So teams are all over the place in regards to how much practice time they got. Of course, Baylor had issues all over the place. Houston had issues all over the place. So Virginia Tech, Tennessee didn't practice for a long time. Florida now. So it's been so sporadic. But as a conference, on one hand, you would say that the team should be more fresh than their opposition in the other Power 5 leagues. However, the Big Ten teams are going to play every week. They're going to play every week with no bye weeks. So that could catch up with somebody who's going to go basically the Big Ten champion is going to go, if there are no issues with cancellation of games, going to play 9 consecutive weeks, including a Big Ten championship game, and step right into a playoff game. So consider that. So Chuck C. reminding us that the offensive line is the most developmental position at this level. Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And it's the unit that requires the most cohesiveness. Mama Mogul 2. Mark, how do you think Rhett's offense will help Miami recruiting? Well, I don't necessarily know that it will, because it's so similar to everybody else's offense. That's one criticism I have of college football currently, is everybody looks the same. And that's not a knock against Rhett Lashley. That's not a knock against anybody, but basically it's been determined that this is the offense to run that outmans the defense. We have gone from offenses that the quarterback was a non-entity in the running game. Basically, the quarterback was a non-entity in the running game because as soon as he handed the ball off, we knew as soon as the quarterback snapped the ball, and especially on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 1 or 3rd and 1, that he was going to hand the ball off, and he's not a blocker. He's nothing. He's out of the play, and you've got 10 on 11. Well, basically, these offenses, they all look the same. Everybody, now, there are different wrinkles that we see from certain teams that we're like, wow, that was a creative play. That was a creative play off of what they do. But in terms of the formations and what they typically do with the RPO and the run pass option and reading the defensive end and the quarterback having to make that determine at the mesh point, that's being done by everyone. It's getting rather boring. But until somebody figures out something differently, that's what everybody's going to go with, because somebody figured out 10 to 12 years ago. I know Urban Meyer at Utah was running this pretty much ahead of the curve. I'm trying to think who else would have been in that same place. Chip Kelly, that we need an athletic quarterback and that can threaten the defense when he keeps the ball. And basically, we're going to make him a threat. So they have to play 11 on 11. And that's what offensive football has become. Now, we keep hearing about everybody's up-tempo and everybody's spreading everything out. And that's what we see with everybody. Who's not doing this? So what is different about Rhett Lashley's offense? I would love to hear that. I would love to see an example of what is different about his offense. Now, he's been able to run some plays where he leaked out a tight end, an H-back, a running back out of the backfield, and basically tricked the defense, basically set them up for a big play that was just a wide open, boom, touchdown. Cam Harris against Louisville. Somebody else against Louisville. It's happened 5 or 6 times this year. I think more so than other offenses I've seen, he has been able to set up a defense and then run something off of it that totally blows a coverage. But I don't know that if you watch every other team in the ACC that you're going to see a different offense, drastically different offense, that you're not going to say, even the pedestrian offenses, obviously Georgia Tech has completely converted over. But even the pedestrian offenses like a Boston College in particular, or a Pitt team that the Pitt team that beat Miami in 2017 from a philosophical standpoint is completely different than the Mark Whipple Pitt team that plays right now. Now it's different without Pickett at quarterback. So take out the Notre Dame game and even what you saw against Miami. That 2017 team, aside from the service academies, was running the ball as much or more than anybody in the country. I think they were in the top 5 in the nation in rushing attempts. They have completely converted that to top 5 in the nation in pass attempts the last 2 years. Boston College looks like everybody else now, where 5 years ago, Boston College looked like they were handing the ball to Andre Williams a zillion times. And then A.J. Dillon, of course, up until last year. And now, boom, they've made it up to 2020. Everybody, LSU, Alabama, they're all, Wisconsin, maybe not quite as much, but they don't have the Jonathan Taylor, James White, Monte Ball type back in the backfield. Look at Wisconsin play. Everybody is doing the same thing. So I don't know whether that really attracts anyone. Well, Paul, I'm going to say that I noticed that more against Pitt, and I'm guessing it was because they didn't trust the wide receivers and didn't trust the offensive line against Pitt's defensive line, which was supposed to be one of the best in the country. And after watching Rashad Weaver, I certainly think that he is one of the best in the country, that they would not do anything risky on 3rd and long. And I'm not talking risky. I'm just talking about basic offense, intermediate routes. Everything was a swing pass and was a run, a designed quarterback run, or actually just give it to the back. Cam Harris, here you go. It's 3rd and 8. Get us a first down. Mama Mogul, too. I miss it as well. I miss diversity. I miss just seeing different teams play different styles. I loved watching Texas Tech play Oklahoma 10 or 12 years ago. Watching that game, 48-45 and 55 passes per team, and then watching Wisconsin play Michigan State and watching them throw 20 or 22 passes and watching a 23-20 game. And then watching Stanford, and talk about a philosophical difference. And, you boxing fans, the classic statement is watching, oh shoot, can't think of the exact statement, is basically styles make a match. Styles make the game. Styles make the fight. Remember when Stanford and Oregon were on top of their game between about 2011 and 2014, 15, for those 4 or 5 years? To watch Stanford and Oregon play was fascinating. Stanford's got 2 tight ends. They had no splits in the offensive line. They all lined up together. They had a fullback. They had 2 tight ends on the field a lot of the time. And they would just pound the ball. And then Oregon played completely different. And it was just fascinating to see. You'd either see Stanford pull off some great upset because they would just impose their will and lean on Oregon and control the game, or there were a year or two in there where Oregon would turn it into a track meet and Stanford wasn't up to it, and boom, it's 48-24. It's tremendous to watch those Oregon Stanford matchups. That's the epitome of styles make the fight. All right, everyone. Dennis, Mark, I like the pro style offense better, but unfortunately, you can't run it if the offensive line is not really good. Absolutely. Everything early 2000s, Miami, Ohio State, USC. George says Miami could beat North Carolina State by kicking 8 field goals. I promise you're going to win this game no matter what, even if it's by 1 point. Thank you, George. I'm sure you have relieved the masses of Miami fans. 904 Hurricane. This is something I can't necessarily speak to, but an interesting comment here. Everyone keep in mind, most of the issues we have are with players that Manny did not recruit. Mr. HD, Mark is a beast. I couldn't sit for 2 hours straight. Oh. All right, everyone. I appreciate it so much. Keep it locked in here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We will have more Miami content. And certainly, if I get the time, I would love to dive into the offensive line recruiting issues and Red Lashley's numbers at other schools. And if he was effective, successful compared to the previous and the following offensive coordinators. I think that's a fascinating topic to look into. Cam Underwood later this week will get you the notification. That's the reason you subscribe, to hit the bell to get the notifications to know when we go live. And of course, subscribe over at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, the main channel, if you like to dive into other teams as well. Thanks so much. It's been a great time. We will see everyone soon. Good night. Thank you, Malachi. I appreciate it.